Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Partners in Health and Biz with your host, Gail Dixon. Tune in every Saturday, 9 a.m. for great shows about obtaining and maintaining health, business, and finance. Learn from the experts here at pihradio.net. And now, broadcasting from the Partners in Health and Biz studio, here's Gail.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is your talk show host, Gail Dixon, and we are Gail Dixon McBride, and we are broadcasting live from our Columbia, Maryland studio. So happy you could join us today. This is a wonderful day. It is Saturday, May 11th, 2019, and we are just going to rejoice. Sunday, tomorrow, May 12th is Mother's Day. So since we won't be broadcasting tomorrow, I'd like to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, all the sisters who are like mothers, all the aunts who are like mothers. And I just hope and pray that you'll have a wonderful, blessed day. If you have a mother, be thankful and show her some appreciation. And also to the grandmothers. So we have a wonderful show planned for you, very important show this morning. And the title, if you have not been to the website, is Slay the Dragon and Avoid Diabetes. So Slay the Dragon and Avoid Diabetes. This show is about pre-diabetes. A lot of us have the symptoms and have been diagnosed with something called pre-diabetes. So you may want to take notes because this is a very important show with a lot of information. And as you know, diabetes runs rampant within the African American community, but so many folks outside of the African American community also suffer with diabetes. So let me give out the call-in number this morning. It is 347-945-7433, 347-945-7433. Press 1 if you have a question or comment, and you don't have to do anything if you just want to dial in and listen to the show. So you can find us on www.pihradio.net. You can also find us on partnersinhealth.biz by going to that website and then clicking on today's show, partnersinhealth.biz, B-I-Z. Okay, so let's just jump into the show. Do you have the blood sugar blues? Got the blood sugar blues? Well, let me tell you, it is a real thing. So we're going to give you the download on prediabetes and why it can actually undermine your health. So second chances, as you know, rarely come in life, but if you've been diagnosed with prediabetes, consider it your wake-up call. Prediabetes, which affects 84 million Americans, is a warning sign that you're on the road to developing type 2 diabetes. And so there are two types of diabetes. There's type 1, which usually affects children, and then there's type 2, resulting from a lack of insulin in the body. Type 1 is called insulin-dependent diabetes, mellitus, IDDM, and occurs most often, again, in children and adolescents, which is why this condition is often called juvenile diabetes. Now, then there's type 1, and then there is type 2 diabetes. With type 2 diabetes, insulin production is not the central problem. The problem is the body's inability to use insulin effectively. For some reason, the cells are not sensitive enough to insulin and therefore do not properly utilize glucose, occurring in people middle-aged or older, and this type of diabetes is often called adult onset, but is otherwise known as non-insulin dependent diabetes. The symptoms are many, but some of the symptoms are fatigue, blurred vision, frequent infections or wounds that are slow to heal, and 90% of those who have diabetes have this type. It is usually discovered during a routine examination, and in many cases, the patient is overweight or obese, inactive, and over the age of 40. Okay, so let's see. If you have been diagnosed with prediabetes, which I said affects 84 million Americans, then this is your warning sign that you are on the road to what I just described as type 2 diabetes. So you can do something about it. By making some strategic lifestyle changes, you can reverse this path and regain good health. So let's talk about this. The sugar sabotage. The sugar sabotage. Prediabetes occurs when your blood sugar levels are higher than normal, but not high enough to be diagnosed with full blown type 2 diabetes. So if you get uh, a diagnosis means that you also have an underlying condition called insulin resistance. Insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas that transports sugar, which is also called glucose, from the bloodstream to the cells to use for energy. Now, when you are insulin resistant, your muscle, fat, and liver cells don't respond properly to insulin and can't easily absorb glucose from the bloodstream. In response, the pancreas pumps out more and more insulin in an effort to shove glucose into the resistant cells. But what happens if these if it's working that hard, then over time the pancreas loses its ability to compensate for the malfunction. And as a result, glucose builds up in the bloodstream, circulating through your blood vessels instead of entering the cells. Now, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, moderately elevated blood sugar means that without making healthy lifestyle changes, you may be more likely to develop type 2 diabetes within the next 5 years. So if you have been told that you have prediabetes, then now is the time to act quickly, because if you don't do something about it within the next 5 years, this pre-diabetes can turn into diabetes. And let me tell you, you do not want to get diabetes if you can avoid it, because the side effects of long-term diabetes, particularly if it's undiagnosed, can mean you could go blind. Your kidneys will start to deteriorate and not function properly. You can lose limbs, arms, legs. Just a host of things that I want my listeners to know can be avoided. But we must act now. If you have been diagnosed, then you must do something. So first you need to do, if you think you may be pre-diabetic or even diabetic, then the first thing you need to do is get tested. So testing for prediabetes is a fairly simple process. You get a blood test, and it's called an AIC test, which will tell your healthcare provider critical information about your average blood sugar levels over the past 3 months. The AIC test result is reported as a percentage. So the higher the percentage, the higher your blood glucose levels are. And if you want to know what a normal AIC level, that is below 5.7%. Below 5.7%. But here's the rub. The AIC test is not as sensitive as other tests, like the fasting plasma insulin test. If this test is over 10 millimeters IUL, it suggests insulin resistance, even though it's considered normal if it is under 25 MICL. The fasting plasma insulin level can identify how your body handles glucose after a meal, often before your fasting blood glucose level becomes abnormal. So, if you have several risk factors for prediabetes, it's wise to discuss having both a glycosylated hemoglobin, and a fasting insulin test with your doctor. Okay, I'll repeat that. It's called a glycosylated hemoglobin and a fasting insulin test with your doctor. You probably need to take both of those if you have several risk factors for prediabetes. One would be if it runs in your family. If your mother has diabetes and your dad has diabetes and your sisters have diabetes, then you're predisposed pretty much for prediabetes and going on to get to full blown diabetes. So I want you to take action. Take action. What can you eat? What you eat can either feed prediabetes or starve prediabetes. That's why the number one change you can make is to eat a healthy diet, avoid added sugar, simple carbohydrates, and heavily processed foods of any kind. It's also wise to watch your portions. Yes, that's very wise. How many of you, my listeners, when you have dinner, you pile up your plate, not just for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now, I know during the holidays we tend to overeat and excuse ourselves. But really, if you want to be health conscious and improve your health, then watch how much you put on your plate. Watch your portion sizes. You really are doing yourself an injustice and harming your body if you overeat, and you can actually put too many carbohydrates into your system. So instead, consider adopting a low carb, paleo, or ketogenic diet. These diets provide healthy amounts of good for you fats, lean protein, and nutrient dense vegetables instead of processed carbs. So we're going to get back to that in a minute, some of the other things you can do in terms of eating. But let's get back to diabetic complications, the possibilities of diabetic complications. Now, not to scare you, but this is a fact. These are facts. People, and this is according to Dr. Andrea D. Sullivan. She is the author of A Path to Healing. Dr. Andrea D. Sullivan is one of the nation's leading naturopaths. If you don't know what a naturopath is, a naturopath helps you to heal. A naturopath is a doctor of natural medicine. Yes, they have gone to school for many years and studied all different types of medicine and natural medicine, such as herbal medicine. So, Dr. Sullivan, who is also one of my doctors, she says that people who suffer from diabetes are often victims of other medical complications. These complications include atherosclerosis, diabetic neuropathy, diabetic retinopathy, diabetic nephropathy, and diabetic foot ulcers. Now, some of those terms you probably don't understand, and we have had a show on Partners in Health and Biz, my partner and I, Wendy Meyerhoff, and we discussed lay language. So, diabetic retinopathy is when the diabetes affects your eyesight and over time causes you to possibly go blind if it's not caught in time. But it does affect your eyesight. So the diabetic patient has 2 or 3 times as great a risk of dying from atherosclerosis. And atherosclerosis, another term which if you're not a doctor, you're saying, what is that, doctor? Well, that is a hardening of the arteries due to cholesterol buildup, too much cholesterol in your system. As the non-diabetic person, it is therefore essential to lower cholesterol levels through your change of diet and lifestyle. For example, the person must eat less saturated fat by reducing animal products and you need to increase the amount of fiber intake from plants such as vegetables, grains, and legumes, and exercise more. Yes, we need to exercise more. One should also eliminate smoking and coffee, both decaffeinated.